here in Nevada. First of all, let's say a huge thank you, gracias, and a great round of applause for Excel and all of the organizers of this great campaign. Thank you all so much. Thank you for what you've done for Senator Warren and what you're going to do tomorrow. Look, it's always great to be here in Nevada because in so many different ways, this state represents the future of our country. It is growing, it is diverse, and it is democratic.
Yeah!
I mean, I think about, I really want to credit so many of the folks who are here who have been a part of powering Democrats to a majority over the last few years, including a Democratic governor.
Yeah!
Some new Democratic congressional representatives. Two fantastic Democratic senators. And for the first time in history, a majority female-led legislature. Congratulations, Nevada! So much to be proud of. And I know that didn't happen by accident. It happened because so many folks who are here put in the time volunteering, organizing, working, talking to folks to make sure that people got out and voted. And here we are again. Yeah. One day before the Nevada caucus.
Yeah. LFG!
I ran for president because I wanted America, like I bet you do, where everyone counts.
Yeah.
I want a president that wants to represent everybody, not some people.
Yeah. I
want a president that doesn't want to make us anything again, doesn't want to go backward, wants to go forward and make us better in the future. In our campaign, we tried to focus a spotlight on a lot of folks who often are forgotten or excluded. I remember visiting a mobile home park in Waukee, Iowa, outside of Des Moines, to talk to people who were struggling to pay the rent because they'd gotten a letter from a private equity group that said they were raising their rent by 60%. I visited with inmates in a DC jail to talk to them about not only how we could ensure that we reform our criminal justice system so that people have an effective second chance in life, but how we could make sure they had a first chance in life. Yeah. Better education, better housing, better health care. I remember visiting Matamoros to speak with migrants who were seeking asylum, a better life in the United States, and were trapped in Trump's cruel Remain in Mexico policy. And I remember last April visiting Las Vegas, going into a storm drainage tunnel that runs underneath the Hard Rock Hotel to speak with people who sleep there at night because they're homeless. And to think about the irony of folks who are homeless in the wealthiest nation on earth, underneath the Las Vegas Strip, with these casinos and hotels that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, in a wonderful community here in Las Vegas. And so when I decided to end my campaign, I had seen all of the presidential candidates up close and personal. Gotten to know what they're about, talked to a lot of them, heard their vision many times on the campaign trail. And what I saw in Senator Warren was that she was the hardest working candidate out there. That she has plans for how we're going to make America brighter and better and stronger. And that she believes in a country where everybody has a place at the table. I just wanted to share one very quick anecdote. I served as President Obama's housing secretary. And Senator Warren.
You were great.
Yeah, I miss President Obama. We need him, She sits on the Senate Banking and Finance Committee that oversees HUD. So we went to lunch one day, the first time that we were sitting down together, and I thought that it would be a good chance for small talk. But right away at the lunch, she was very nice. It was a pleasant lunch, but it was very clear that she wasn't there for small talk. Elizabeth Warren was there to make sure that as housing secretary, we were holding Wall Street accountable and keeping more people in their homes instead of allowing them to lose them.
Yeah.
She wanted to make sure that we were living up to the promise of President Obama's push to end veteran homelessness in this country.
Yeah.
She wanted to make sure that we were fighting for more resources from the appropriations committees so that more people could have a safe, decent, affordable place to live, because she also believes that housing is a human right in the wealthiest nation on earth. And here's what impressed me about that the most. What impressed me about that is, look, if you're a Democrat, it's very easy to try and hold Republicans accountable. And if you're a Republican, it's very easy to try and hold Democrats accountable. But she was there to hold me accountable as a Democrat.
Yes, she was.
From a friendly administration. And what that told me is that for her, it's not about title or party. It's about the people.
Yeah.
The people
Yeah.
that she's there to represent. And so I don't have to guess what kind of president Elizabeth Warren will be, because I know what kind of senator she's been. She has been a champion for everyday Americans who just need a shot and opportunity. She's been working hard on their behalf, not for Wall Street or big corporate interests or special interests. Washington is full of people who can afford high-priced lawyers and lobbyists. Elizabeth Warren is a champion for all of the rest of us who need a voice in Washington. That's the kind of senator that she's been. That's the kind of president she would be. I'm sure that y'all saw the debate the other night. I told her that was a spectacular debate. So, you saw how she handled Mayor Bloomberg. Now you've seen how she's going to hold accountable one unaccountable billionaire. How about she does that against Donald Trump in October?
Get him!
Y'all see the news today that he decided to start releasing people from those non-disclosure agreements? Elizabeth Warren already made him cry uncle. She's already getting things done. She always gets things done. I want her to go up against Donald Trump because we need to beat him in November. But the only way that can happen is if y'all caucus for Elizabeth Warren, if you make sure that she does great here in Nevada. And when you go out and caucus, you'll be caucusing for every senior citizen that needs to make sure that Medicare and Social Security are there for them.
Yes.
For every child sitting in a classroom seat tomorrow that has big dreams but needs a better education so that they can achieve it, you'll be caucusing for every single family out there who is struggling with health care, going broke because they can't afford the illness of a loved one. You'll be caucusing for young men of color who are too oftentimes subject to police abuse, and for all of those migrants who are simply seeking a better life so that we can reform our immigration system and fix it once and for all.
Yes, we will!
And if you go out there and caucus for Elizabeth Warren, then I know that she's going to do great here in Nevada and go on and do great in South Carolina and then in my home state of Texas and California and get the Democratic nomination. And I can't wait for that night in November when they announce that, first of all, we ditched Mitch McConnell and took back the Senate, and then we elected the next President of the United States. Help me welcome Elizabeth Warren.
Castro the best, or is he just the best? Of all the the amazing things that have happened in this over a year of running for president. One of the best has been partnering up with Julian, a good man who is determined to make change in this country. Thank you, Julian. So it's good to see you. So glad to see all of you. This is great.
I love you, Mom.
I love you. I'm so glad you're here, and it really does feel like family. In fact, I have my sweetie here. Bruce is over there. So I thought what we do in this night before caucus, that sounds like the start of a poem, doesn't it? 'Twas the night before caucus, and all along the hill. But I thought what we do is I tell you just a little bit about why I'm in this race. We take a few questions, and then we would do the most important part of democracy, the selfie. Oh, I have to say, I hope on your way in you got a selfie with Big Bailey.
Yes!
He's a good boy.
Bailey!
He's a good boy. He is. He tore apart one of his toys the other day, but he did say he was sorry. So I thought what I'd talk about a little bit is I just want to tell you a story that winds right here through Clark County. Now, it starts in Oklahoma. Yes, Okie women. I was born and raised in Oklahoma. I have 3 much older brothers. When I was growing up, our daddy had a lot of different jobs. He sold carpet, he sold fencing, he sold housewares. Ultimately, Daddy ended up as a janitor. Mom worked a minimum wage job at Sears. All 3 of my older brothers went off and joined the military. Me, I have known what I wanted to be since 2nd grade. Now, some of you may think,
Yeah.
whoa, that's early. Didn't decide till like 4th grade. Like 5th grade in the way back. People who came in late. No, I've known what I wanted to do since 2nd grade. I wanted to be a public school teacher. Can we hear it for our public school teachers? You bet. And I just want you all to know, I invested early. I used to line up my dollies and teach school. I had a reputation for being tough but fair. But I loved it. It's what I always wanted to do. Talked about it from the time I was a little kid. By the time I graduated from high school, my family didn't have the money for a college application, much less to send me off at 4 years at university. So I have a story that's bumpy at best. Part of it is I was a high school debater, got a scholarship to college. Let's hear it for the nerds. Oh, and then let's hear it for good decisions. At 19, I fell in love, dropped out, and got married. Oh, that's right. Not to Bruce. Yes, he will be coming up in season 2. But my big chance, I thought I'd given up on the dream. I thought that's it. I'll never be able to go to college, which means I'll never finish college, never be able to teach school. In fact, I found, we were living outside Houston, I found a commuter college that cost $50 a semester. And for a price I could pay for on a part-time waitressing job, I finished my 4-year diploma and I became a special education teacher. I love my dream job. We got any public school teachers in here? Should have known. Got some more over there, some down. Whoa, even in the way back. Yeah. So you all are going to have to back me up on this.
Yes.
You're going to back me up on this. It is not a job, it is a calling.
Yes.
I loved my children. I was teaching, by this time we were up in New Jersey. I had 4 to 6-year-olds in special education, and I loved my babies. And I probably would still be doing that work to this day, but the story has a few more twists and turns, and here comes the next one. By the end of the first year, I was visibly pregnant. And the principal did what principals did in those days. Wished me luck and hired someone else for the job. So, yeah, those were the days. So here I am, I'm at home, I got a baby, I can't get a job, I got to do something, so I will go to law school. Baby on hip, I found a state law school, cost $450 a semester, did 3 years of law school, graduated visibly pregnant. You begin to discover a pattern to this story. And took the bar, passed the bar, and practiced law for 45 minutes. And went back to my first love, teaching. Other big changes in my life. Husband number one, hint, never good when you have to number your husband. Husband number one and I parted ways, but I found Bruce and I've held on to him ever since. So here I am. I'm teaching in law school. And look, maybe it's because of how I grew up, but it was always the money courses for me. I taught contract law and commercial law, secure transactions, payment systems, corporate finance, partnership finance, law of debtors and creditors, bankruptcy law, law and economics, all of it. But there was always one central question that I worked on, and that is what's happening to working families in America? Why is America's middle class being hollowed out? Why is it that people who work every bit as hard as my mom and dad worked 2 generations ago today find the path so much rockier and so much steeper? And for people of color, even rockier and even steeper.
Thank you.
And the answer has to do with whose side government is on. Who is government really watching out for? Is it watching out for people, or is it watching out for giant corporations? Think of it this way. We have a government right now that works great for giant drug companies, just not working for people trying to get a prescription filled. Works great for anyone who wants to invest in private detention centers down at our border or private prisons, just not for the human beings whose lives are torn apart by those places. Works great for giant oil companies that want to drill everywhere, just not for the rest of us who see climate change bearing down upon us. When you've got a government that works great for those at the top and isn't working for much of anyone else, that is corruption, pure and simple, and we need to call it out for what it is. Corruption.
Yes.
So I spent a big hunk of my life fighting this, pushing back against the corruption. As we get into the late 90s, I start to watch what's happening with home mortgages and how it is that these mortgage companies have begun to figure out that, wow, there are folks now living in African American communities, living in Latino communities, who own homes. And they figure out they can target those communities for the worst of the worst mortgages, literally. Go door to door, talking people into refinancing homes they already own, talking people into buying homes using their mortgages. And these are mortgages that were not designed to help people buy homes. These were mortgages that were designed to steal homes from people. That's what they were there for. So I started ringing every alarm bell I knew to ring. We got a problem here. It's a terrible problem. And it's going to come home and it's going to crash millions of people across this country. Ding, 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 every way I knew to ring that bell. And here's what I discovered. When your ears are stuffed with money, it's hard to hear.
Yes. Tell them, Liz.
Nobody wanted to hear this. The regulators didn't want to hear it. The banks didn't want to hear it. The politicians didn't want to hear it. So everybody just kept saying, sell those mortgages. Man, the profits for the banks were just going through the roof. And those mortgages were being sold now, not just in communities of color, but everywhere across this country. And sure enough, what happened? The crash came big and hard in 2008, and Clark County was right at the center of it. You know, when Michael Bloomberg was busy blaming the crash on African Americans and Latinx families who tried to buy homes, I was right here in Clark County, holding hearings. Harry Reid had asked me if I would come and try to provide some accountability during the crash. So I was a part of this. And we held our very first hearing right at the end of 2008, right at UNLV, right at the law school. Go UNLV.
Go Rebels!
And we thought we'd just have a few witnesses come in. But people packed this auditorium we were in. They lined up outside. They wanted to be able to tell their stories. They desperately wanted a government that would be on their side. And this is when I met your neighbor that I talked about the other night, Mr. Estrada. He was one of several people who just came in and asked for a minute at the microphone. And he talked about, he's a hard-working man, had on his working clothes, his gimme cap. And he talked about how he'd lost his job as things had started to unwind, fallen a little bit behind on his home mortgage, thought he had everything straightened out with Wells Fargo. And then in a matter of weeks, Wells Fargo took his home away. And he was in the last few days of being able to live in this house. And he stood there and started to talk about his two little daughters who go to the elementary school across from their home, and how one of the two girls had brought home a list of all of her friends that she was going to miss when they had to leave the elementary school because they were going to be moved out of their home. And he teared up as he talked about the promise he made to his daughter, that no matter how hard it was, he would keep them in that school, even if it meant they were going to be living out of their van. I listened to Mr. Estrada and I thought, never again in this country.
Yeah.
Never again. Never again. I've had it with these bank regulators, with these politicians who listen to the giant banks, to the billionaires, to the lobbyists, and they leave people like Mr. Estrada to pick up the dirt at the end. That's the whole game there. And I thought, we are not going to do this again. And so I got in the fight for a consumer agency. The idea just pretty simple. You shouldn't be able to boost your profits by cheating people on mortgages and credit cards. And remember, I'm not in elected politics. I'm still just a teacher. And so I go to Washington and just knock on doors to try to pitch the idea for this agency. And here's the amazing part. I talk to anybody, Democrat, Republican, I don't care. I just wanted to get this done. I just wanted some safety in the system so that nobody would get cheated like this again and end up out on the street. And so I'd knock on doors and talk to people, and what hit me pretty soon is that I was getting the same two answers from everybody. Answer number one is, that's a pretty good idea. You could make a real difference. And answer number two was, don't even try. Because you cannot possibly get it done. You'll be up against big money. You'll be up against Wall Street. You'll be up against the donors. You'll be up against all the Republicans. And you'll be up against half the Democrats on this deal. But it was the right thing to do. So we got in the fight. We pulled people together, people who'd never been organized around this issue. I want to say the first group to jump in were the unions. We could have done it without it. AFL-CIO, SEIU, they were in. All of the unions jumped in. AARP jumped in. God bless them. Culinary in. I'm trying to remember who else. Bunches of groups jumped in, people for whom mortgages had never been their first issue, but they had members who'd been hurt by this. And ultimately, in 2010, President Obama was able to sign that agency into law. We take on hard fights and we win. That is the first lesson. But here's the second lesson. That little agency has already forced the big banks to return more than $12 billion directly to people. So the two lessons for me: one, you get in a fight, you get enough people in with you, you can win. And lesson number two, we can make government work for the people. We just gotta do it. So that's it for me. That's why I'm running for president. Not in a million years did I think I'd be standing on a stage like this, but this is the moment, our chance to make a government work for all of us. Not for some of us, not just for those born into privilege, not just those who can hire an army of lobbyists and lawyers, but to make it work for all of us, to hold our government accountable. And for me, that's what tomorrow is all about. So let's do this one together. Let's do some questions. Who's got some questions? Who's got our question? Oh, there we are.
It's such a pleasure to see you again.
Oh,
She's an inspiration
hello.
to all of us.
Thank you. Tell me your name.
It's Amy Thomason. I'm 77 years old, and I'm in the fight with you every step.
All right.
What I fear is what's happening is this negative attitude, the negative perception that's being pushed by unknown forces, such like multi-billionaires, big banks, insurance companies, all these people, big pharma. They don't want you to succeed. It's like the Russian disinformation program, and they can't tell us it's not happening again. They want everyone to think, the average person that is easily persuaded, that women are not electable, and a person as fine as you is not electable. It's crazy. We can't let them succeed in this disinformation campaign, and my only wish is that your operation will be able to attack this. Not let them succeed in spreading more misinformation. You can win. You always have won, and you will win for us again.
Thank you, boy. Amy is my kind of fighter. That's what. You know, I do want to say something about this though, because like I said, I never thought I would go into electoral. I know what I was going to do all my life. I was going to be a teacher, right? Do the research, hand it to other folks, let them go with it. That was going to be great. And after I went to Washington to set up the consumer agency, President Obama asked me to be part of his administration. I spent a year setting up the agency. And at the end of that year, the Republicans said, we will never confirm her to run it permanently. So President Obama said to me, go back to Massachusetts and beat the incumbent senator there, the Republican. Like I say, I'm like, what? I don't run for office. This is crazy, right? And once I found out a little bit more, I found out why not many other Democrats had signed up to do this. Massachusetts is not a state that lacks for people who can look at themselves in the mirror and say, I could be senator. And I say that with love, actually. But we love our moderate Republicans. And we had a moderate Republican senator who had just beaten a very competent woman, and he had more than $10 million already in the bank, and an open checkbook from Wall Street, and a great story to tell. And frankly, a lot of folks looked at that and said, nobody's going to beat him. In fact, they said it to me. They said, Elizabeth, you should run for that Senate seat. You're not going to beat him, but you should run for it. All I can say is, Democrats, get a better sales pitch. But I'll tell you this, I looked at that and I thought, you know, that guy, for his nice smile and his so-called moderate approach, in fact, goes down to Washington every week and votes against my values, votes against the things I care for, So I'm not going to wake up on the day after the election and discover I did anything less than 100% of what I could do.
Yeah.
And if that means you want to be in the fight yourself, then I'm in this fight.
Yes.
So I started out 19 points down. I started out listening to people tell me that a woman couldn't win this race. Massachusetts, after all, had never had a woman senator or a woman governor. I started out so far behind that I don't even get mentioned in early parts of what's going on. But here's the thing. I stayed in that fight, and I fought. And I fought, and I fought. I ended up beating that guy by 7.5 points. So you want to understand, every time somebody tells you a woman can't beat Donald Trump, well, I don't know about a woman, but I'll tell you Elizabeth Warren can beat Donald Trump. And if anyone doubts whether or not I can fight him on a debate stage, I think we have the video. I'm ready for that man. And by the way, come on, you all live in Las Vegas. This is the place you can put down the betting line. I'm just offering you this. I think there's a 50-50 chance that Donald Trump looks at debating me and doesn't even show up.
Exactly.
He ain't that brave. Okay, all right, let's have some fun. Who else we got?
I posted that on Facebook
Hi.
a couple of months ago.
Hi, my name is Jacob.
Hi, Jacob.
I was born and raised in Las Vegas.
All right.
And I care deeply about gun reform.
Yes.
Given the events of October 2017 and the countless events across the country. And we learned during, you have, I think, the best gun control stance of anyone running currently, but we learned during the Obama years that it's very hard for a president alone to accomplish a lot. So my question is, what can a president with a divided Congress do to change the culture and the conversation around gun violence?
Okay, it's a great question, Jacob. And let's start just with a statement of the problem. We have a gun violence problem in America. It is about mass shootings that are horrific, and the people in Las Vegas have suffered, as have people in public schools around the country, in churches, but that's not the only place. People also die on our playgrounds and sidewalks, one here, one there, but the numbers add up. It happens particularly in communities of color, never gets a headline, but when it is your beloved who dies, it matters and matters a lot. We also have a problem with suicide and the increased lethality of suicide attempts because of the availability of guns. And we also have a problem with domestic violence. The increased odds that a woman, it's usually a woman, will end up dead if she is in a home with an abuser and a gun. So we got a lot of different problems here. We're not going to solve this, as you know, Jacob, with just one-off or two ideas. It's going to take an approach that says we do what we can and we come back, we keep studying it, we keep making change. Very much like we did with auto safety decades ago. We were talking about carnage on the road, too many deaths. So what did we do? Some of it was obvious, seat belts, safety glass. Some of it hadn't been used in cars before, like airbags and automatic braking systems. But we keep studying, we keep changing. We have to treat gun violence like the public health emergency that it is. That's part one. But I'm not just about what is the right thing to do. I am about how do we get it done.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And there is no better place to talk about this than right here in Nevada. Because moms stood up, got people elected, held them accountable, and got the gun laws changed right here. You show us that democracy can be made to work. So here's the question you should be asking yourself. How is it that in America, where more than 90% of the people want to see us put in some sensible legislation, right? To do reasonable background checks, to get weapons of war off our streets, and we can't even get a vote in Mitch McConnell's Senate? The answer? Corruption.
Yes.
This is a government that works for the NRA and the gun industry instead of working for the
Thank
people
you.
of the United States of America.
Yes.
We're going to put an end to that.
Yes.
So part of this is we got to be united as a Democratic Party. We got to win not just the White House, we got to win the Senate and put Mitch McConnell out of the job.
Get him out.
But Jacob, I want to give you one more twist to that. And that is, if Mitch McConnell, even as minority leader, tries to do what he did to President Obama and block everything that the president did, it is time to get rid of the filibuster.
Yes.
When other people who are running for president, and I say this just as a factual statement, like Bernie, who say they want to make real change, but they will not roll back the filibuster. Keep in mind what that means. They have given a veto to the gun industry to prevent real change and gun reform. A veto to the pharmaceutical industry, a veto to the insurance industry. We cannot give a veto to those who want to block real change in this country. So we know what our goal is, and we have a path to get there. And if we need to roll back the filibuster so we can pass these on 50 votes, by golly, it is time to do it. Our children are counting on us. Yes.
Professor Warren.
The mic isn't
Turn it off.
working.
Did you turn the mic off?
Senator?
Yeah.
Hi, Senator. Hi, Senator Warren. Thank you so much. I gotta say that.
Did you turn it off?
This is the last question.
Oh my, okay. Gotta get to those selfies. Okay.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, my bucket list is pretty short at this point, but I have to tell you, this is a dream come true. The only thing that will make me happier is watching your inauguration.
We're gonna do this together.
I have one thing to say to the audience, to the crowd here, to all our wonderful people here, is that I don't see this as who can beat Trump, because it's up to us. We have to build an army. It's up to us to beat Trump.
Yes.
It's up to us to build an army for this remarkable woman who is
Yes.
so I am bringing everybody I can in my neighborhood tomorrow to caucus, and if we can all just do that, bring one person or two or 5 or 10 or as many as you can, and build an army for this woman. Let's get her into the presidency. Now here's my question. I hear a lot of people saying that it doesn't matter who we have in office, it's all about getting Trump out. I don't believe that.
No.
There are a few people that I would have a real hard time voting for, and I'm afraid of them. I want to hear, and I know why, because I know your plan backwards and forwards, and I know why it's the best. But I want to know why, from you, why I think it's important that we get the right person, and I know why you're the right person. But I think it's crucial. It's a crucial time in our country. And we can't afford to have the wrong person in there. And we don't need to replace a bad person with another wrong person.
Right.
So that's what I want to hear about.
Okay, thank you. And thank you. That was just really great. This is terrific. So I think you're right. Obviously, our first job is to beat Donald Trump. Can we just do that one more time? it is not enough. Think about it this way. A country that elected Donald Trump is a country that was already in serious trouble.
Yes.
It was a country in which far too many Americans felt disconnected from their nation and didn't see a future for themselves. I see this as Democrats have got this chance, and we get to go to the well in 2020 and say to everybody, including people we've disappointed in the past, including people we haven't listened to in the past, and say, come with us one more time. Climb this hill with us one more time. And if they do, and they put us in the White House and in the Senate and in some of these races up and down the ticket, then you better believe we must deliver. We must deliver.
Yes, we
And
will.
when I say deliver, I don't mean a little nibble over here and a little nibble over there. We have got to deliver the kind of big structural change that America is ready for. The kind of change that fights back against the influence of money in our government. We have had enough of the corruption.
Yes.
The kind of change that is about structural change in our economy. A president who has the courage to stand up and enforce our antitrust laws and break up these giants. A president who understands that you build a strong economy by having strong unions. Unions built America's middle class. Unions will rebuild America's middle class. A president who is willing to fight for a wealth tax on the top 1/10 of 1%, so that we can invest in an entire generation of young people. That's the America we can be. A president who will invest in our democracy so that every American citizen has a right to vote and to get that vote counted. To roll back every racist voter suppression law. To end political gerrymandering.
Yes.
To overturn Citizens United. We have big changes to make, and it's not going to be easy. But that's what this election is about. It's not about going backwards, it's about going forward. It's about the America we can build. Look, I get it. It's been 3 long years of Donald Trump. 3 years. And people are scared. I talk to people across this country who are afraid. They are afraid for their families, afraid for their neighbors, afraid for children locked in cages down at our border, afraid for children in lockdowns in our schools, afraid for women, afraid for people of color, afraid for LGBTQ people, afraid for trans people, all of whose rights are up for grabs in this United States Supreme Court. They are afraid for our nation and afraid for our planet. And the danger is real. Our democracy hangs in the balance. And you have a decision to make in Nevada tomorrow. With this much fear, with this much hanging in the balance, do we get cautious? Do we get timid? Do we back up? Or do we fight back? Me, I'm fighting back. I'm fighting back. Fighting back is an act of patriotism. We fought back against a king to build this nation. We fought back against the scourge of slavery to save this union. We fought back against a Great Depression to rebuild this economy. And we fought back against the rise of fascism to protect our democracy. America's at its best when it sees a problem and it fights back. This is no time for small solutions. This is no time to nibble around the edges. This is no time to talk without action. This is a time to get in the fight, to see the problems, to offer bigger solutions, and to put those solutions into action. I didn't build a campaign with a bunch of consultants. I did not put together a bunch of proposals designed not to offend wealthy donors. You probably already noticed that.
Obvious.
I'm running a campaign from a lifetime of fighting for working families. I am running a campaign from the heart because I believe in you. And I believe in what we can build together. I believe in the America we can build together. An America where every person has value. An America where every child is worth investing in. An America where in our democracy it is people, not money, that matters the most. I can see this America. I can see it. And if you can see just a little of the outline, and if you think that America is worth fighting for, then I'm asking you, tomorrow, get in this fight with me. Get in this fight. Because this moment in history will not come along again. This is the moment in history that we have been called to. The moment to choose courage over fear. The moment to choose hope over hopelessness. The moment to dream big, fight hard.